ett spännande avsnitt av min lilla bokhörna. Idag ska vi prata om en bok som heter The Deliberate Corruption of Climate Science av Tim Ball. En forskare, en väldigt spännande forskare som till råga på allt har som merit att han har fått omkull Michael Mann som var orsak eller skapare utav The Hockey Stick eller ishockeyklubban, som berättar att det har varit väldigt kallt tidigare och sen helt plötsligt i modern tid så har det blivit väldigt varmt. Och det här har gjorts upp om i rätten ett antal gånger och Michael Ball har kommit ut som segrare ur den tvisten. Hur som helst, vi ska prata lite om den här boken. Den här är skriven 2014 och Tim Ball själv är ju jag ska läsa. A highly qualified and experienced academic with an expertise in historical climatology who rejects most of the current hysteria around climate change and global warming. He is a modest gentleman who, in spite of his enormous work in the field and the chairing of inquiries and commissions into environmental causes, is now libeled, slandered, abused and threatened for his opinions. Så det här är ju en av de här sakerna som är lite kontroversiell, eller kanske i allra högsta grad kontroversiell. Man får ju inte ifrågasätta den allmänna uppfattningen om att planeten håller på att värmas upp och det är på grund av oss människor. Jag tillhör den skaran som inte riktigt håller med där. Hur som helst, 2014 kom den ut på Stairway Press och jag ska läsa förordet till den här som Tim Ball själv har skrivit. Häng med! Preface. Then up and spent the evening walking with my wife, talking, and it thundering and lightning mightily all the evening. And this year have had the most thunder and lightning, they say, of any in man's memory. Diary of Samuel Pepys, entry July 3rd, 1664. Så att det blir bara värre och värre, det har man sagt i alla tider. I've studied climate both scientifically and academically for over 40 years after spending 8 years studying meteorology and observing the weather as an aircrew and operations officer in the Canadian Air Force. When I began the academic portion of my career, global cooling was the concern, but it was not a major social theme. During the 1980s, the concern switched to global warming, which became a major political, social and economic issue. I watched my chosen discipline, climatology, get hijacked and exploited in service of a political agenda, watched people who knew little or nothing enter the fray and watched scientists become involved for political or funding reasons, willing to corrupt the science or at least ignore what was really going on. The tale is more than a sad story because it set climatology back 30 years and damaged the credibility of science in general. It also undermined the environmental movement by incorrectly claiming massive environmental damage and setting up a classic cry wolf scenario. It is the greatest deception in history and the extent of the damage has yet to be exposed and measured. There have been, of course, other sad deceptions throughout history, but all of them were regional or at most continental. The deceptive idea that human-generated CO2 causes global warming or climate change impacted every person in the entire world. Thus, it reflects Marshall McLuhan's concept of the global village. This book shows how the deception was designed to be global by involving every nation through the agencies of the United Nations. Historians, with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, will wonder how such a small group was able to achieve such a massive deception. There are several reasons why the public was deceived. 1. The objective and therefore the science were premeditated. 2. The scientific focus was deliberately narrowed to CO2. 3. From the start, unaccountable government agencies were involved and in control. 4. Science and political structures and procedures were put in place to enhance the deception. 5. Actions were taken to block or divert challenges. 6. The people's natural fears about change and catastrophe were exploited. 7. The public's lack of scientific understanding, especially with regard to climate science, was exploited. 8. People find it hard to believe a deception on such a grand scale could occur. 9. Opponents were ruthlessly attacked, causing others to remain silent. Some call the human-caused global warming theme a hoax, but that's incorrect. A hoax is defined as a humorous or malicious deception. The Piltdown Man was a hoax perpetrated by one academic to expose the arrogance and pomposity of another. Its impact was in academia, but had little relevance in the real world. There is nothing humorous about the corruption of climate science. Further, a political objective need not be malevolent. However, the methods used to achieve the goals of progressive activists are assuredly ugly, malicious, and wrong. Some have called the corruption of climate science a conspiracy, partly because conspiratorial themes are fueled by speculations on the internet. A conspiracy is defined as a secret plan to do something unlawful or harmful. There is no doubt what the activists have done is harmful, but pursuing a political goal is lawful. What is unlawful is using deliberate deceptions, misinformation, manipulations of records, and misapplying scientific method and research. Indeed, it is amazing how they deceive the entire world through using existing laws and societal structures. It fits the classic description of daylight robbery. It is more appropriate to identify the group as a cabal, a secret political clique or faction. This book explains their motive and objectives, which were political, not scientific. It explains how, in order to do this, they bypassed and perverted the scientific method, the normal and proper method by which science progresses. They effectively silenced scientists who tried to perform the normal roles of critics and skeptics. Consider this brave but late admission by German physicist and meteorologist Klaus Eckhard Plus. And this was in May 12, 2012. 10 years ago, I simply parroted what the IPCC told us. One day I started checking the facts and data. First, I started with a sense of doubt, but then I became enraged when I discovered that much of what the IPCC and the media were telling us was sheer nonsense and was not even supported by any scientific facts and measurements. To this day, I still feel ashamed that as a scientist I made presentations to the science without first checking it. Scientifically, it is sheer absurdity to think we can get a nice climate by turning a CO2 adjustment knob. Slutcitat. If someone so knowledgeable about the subject of meteorology and atmospheric physics can be so readily deceived, it is not surprising that the general public was deceived. This underscores the effectiveness of the deliberate and carefully orchestrated climate science deception. However, it also underscores the problems of writing a book that identifies what they did and how it was done. If the science is too complicated, people won't read the book. If it's too simplistic, the critics will say it's trivialized and make errors that they will use to condemn. As I hope you will learn, the architects of this greatest deception actually set up a website to carry out such attack on those who dare to question. They recruited the mainstream media to run stories marginalizing the scientific claims and the credibility of the messenger. Seth Borenstein, a national science writer for the Associated Press, sent an email on July 23, 2009 to the Climate Research Unit, CRU, gang, whose corruptive practices were exposed by leaked emails. He wrote, "Kevin, Gavin, Mike, it's Seth again. Attached is a paper in JGR today that Mark Morano is hyping widely. It is a legit journal. What do you think?" A journalist talking to scientists is legitimate, but like the leaked emails, the tone and subjective comments are telling again means there's a previous communication. Others commented on Borenstein's being too damn cozy with the people he covers. Another example was the unhealthy connection between Richard Black of the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC, and the CRU. As Michael Mann wrote, "Extremely disappointing to see something like this appear on BBC. It's particularly odd, since climate is usually Richard Black's beat at BBC, and he does a great job. We may do something about this on Real Climate, but meanwhile, it might be appropriate for the Met Office to have a say about this. I might ask Richard Black what's up here." They're just a fraction of the machinations that went on to achieve their goal of bringing down industrialized economies and societies using science. I broke with recommended procedures and used many quotes because it is necessary to show that they knew what they were doing, that it was premeditated. I reduce science to a minimum and only show major misuse, not to mislead, although I will likely be charged with cherry picking, but to illustrate and support the overall story. This is not intended as a textbook, nor is it meant to be an academic treatise, although it has many footnotes. It is an attempt to explain what happened when science is misused for a political agenda, and this is only achieved by creating a hybrid book form. This approach is required because the world has never before suffered from deception on such a scale. Ja, mycket spännande bok kan jag säga. Mycket intressant människa. Det som pågår med klimathysterin får mig onekligen att tänka på det som pågår med coronahysterin nu också. Och den är väl kanske än mindre belagd med fakta. Men vi ska återkomma till det längre fram. Nästa vecka ska vi titta på Body of Secrets av James Bamford. Också en mycket intressant bok om NSA. Jag får passa på att be om ursäkt att jag inte hann med att göra den här videon i söndags. Hoppas ni inte låg sömnlösa över det. Men jag är tillbaka om ett antal dagar och då kikar vi på James Bamford. Till dess, ha det bra och ta hand om er. Hej hej!